As soon as I got up this morning, there was nothing about the conditions that inspired me to go out and do any landscape photography. I could hear the wind howling past my house, I could hear the rain hitting the window, but I got up anyway and I looked outside and I was met with very dull, dreary, rainy conditions. It was not the type of conditions that invite you to get out of bed and do landscape photography, more the type of conditions that invite you to stay in bed. However, I think it's important, as long as the weather isn't too bad, to motivate yourself, to challenge yourself and get out and do some landscape photography. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. There's something I do on conditions such as today that always inspires me and motivates me, and it challenges me. And I'll run through that with you in this video. So on days such as this, I think it's so important to inspire yourself and motivate yourself to go outdoors, challenge yourself in your landscape photography and just see what images you can come up with. It's all too easy to stay indoors, perhaps even stay in bed. So on a day like this, I always follow a set plan. I find it works really well for me. I always go home feeling I'm so glad I came out. And I'll talk you through this in this video. Hopefully it's something you can use in your own photography and perhaps help you too. So the very first key thing obviously is to inspire yourself and motivate yourself to get out. And I do that by setting myself a challenge, and I'll talk you through this challenge. The first part of my challenge is going to a location which I know doesn't have any obvious compositions, it doesn't have any iconic shots. So for example, you may all know some location where you can photograph a really nice hill or mountain, or a bridge over a nice flowing river. I avoid places like that and I go somewhere where I know I'm going to have to work hard to get a nice image. Today I've came to a section of woodland. It could be the coast you go to, it could be the countryside, wherever it is, just go somewhere that you know you're going to have to work hard to get a composition. The second key part of my plan is for the location I've chosen, I restrict myself to a fairly small area in that particular location. So for example, in the woodland that I'm in today, if I was to walk around the perimeter of this area, I reckon I could do the whole thing without photography in roughly 30 minutes. I think if you're out looking for images, you can have a tendency to just keep walking and walking until you find something obvious. By restricting myself to this area, I'm really going to have to work hard and go back and forth the area and explore. And I just feel that helps me work harder at my photography rather than just walking and walking until I find something obvious. So step 3 in my plan is to really focus on composition today. Now because of the weather, I'm not going to get any fantastic sunlight today. There's going to be no wonderful shafts of light coming down through the forest. There's going to be no really nice sunrise or sunset colour in the sky. So the main thing that's going to help me get a good image today is going to be composition. So I work really hard at that, and the whole plan that I create for today is formulated around that I have to work hard on composition. So as I walk around, I'm really looking for things that could make a nice composition, and I'm really spending a lot of time going around trees or a certain area of the woodland, really trying to fine-tune my composition and just work on my skills in that area of my photography. So the final step in my plan, step 4, is to commit myself today to take at least one image, but to take no more than 3 images. And I feel this approach gives me quality over quantity. So I'm going to take my time walking around this fairly small area, looking for things that interest me. If I find something, I'm really going to question it, is it worth taking? And I'm really going to fine-tune the composition if it is. I feel if you just walk around taking too many shots, you go home with quantity over quality, you never get the best out of a particular scene. So I really just want to treat this as a slow exercise, take my time, really work hard on my composition, and try and get images that I'm happy with. Now, one key important thing for me today is that I accept and probably know that it's fairly unlikely I'll get one of my best, say, 10 ever images today. But it's not about that. The goal of this is that I go home with at least one image I'm personally happy with and proud of, and I feel that I've done well to capture this image considering the conditions and so on, and the restrictions and limitations I've placed on myself today. I'm in a fairly small area, the weather isn't good, I've not went to an iconic location, there's perhaps no obvious compositions. I'm going to have to work hard. So if I can go home with at least one image that I'm happy with today, and potentially up to 3 images, I feel I've done really well, and it'll be a really fruitful, nice day for me. So that's what I'm hoping to do. Time to head off and start looking. There's a little bit of rain starting at the moment, but the other reason I chose the woodland today is that, as I said, it's extremely windy and there's a little bit of rain as well. So I think the woodland gives me a little bit more shelter than perhaps going to the coast. But I'm looking forward to this. I'm off to explore, hopefully find some nice scenes and fine-tune the compositions. That's a bit better. So I'm interested in this tree which I've found behind me. I like the moss on it. As I said, there's no fantastic light today, but the diffused light that I've got is highlighting the moss quite nicely. I like its shape. There's some interesting fungus on the tree beside it as well, and I like the contrasting colour of the lighter bark on this particular tree. I'm also interested in this other tree just off to the side, and I'm wondering if I could get a composition incorporating them all, or perhaps I'm better just focusing on this particular tree. So that's what I'm talking about today. I'm really going to work around this scene, have a good look and see if I can come up with the best image, because I do think this is worth photographing. I think there's potential here, but it needs a bit of work to make sure I go away with the best shot. So after looking around this area for quite a while, I finally settled on my composition. I'm really pleased with it. I took the shot pretty much from where the camera is now pointing in this direction. I took it from this angle for a number of reasons. One is that I just think it makes these trees in the foreground of my image look their best in terms of their shape and being able to see all the detail on them. This one here, I like how the fungus is growing out mainly from the sides from this angle, with only one at the bottom looking towards me. I think that works really nicely. And you can see all the detail in the bark and the moss, etc. The other reason is that the tree in the background is a much older looking tree, and it provides nice contrast in relation to the ones in the foreground. I decided I wanted to include that in my image because I'm quite drawn to that tree. And I think taking it from this angle, the trees in the foreground provide excellent framing through to that tree in the distance. Also, the tree in the left, there's a bit of a curve to it, and it mirrors slightly the curve of the much older tree in the distance. So I feel this has been a worthwhile exercise for me already. I've really enjoyed coming out. I think I found quite a nice image here that I'm pleased with. So I'll put it up, hopefully you like it, but I'm off now to explore and spend a bit more time, see if I can find anything else worth capturing. So as I explore the woodland looking for another image, the area that I've set myself is gradually reducing in size. That is because it's getting later in the afternoon, the sun is moving position, and a lot of the area, mainly over that section of the area that I'm exploring, is now very dark and it just doesn't make for good images. So in a way this is a good thing. It's forcing me to explore for compositions in even a smaller area and just pay more attention to detail. So again, it's all good for my photography. But due to the changing light conditions, there wasn't any fantastic light today, even at the best of times. I'm probably going to settle for one more image today, if indeed I can find one. So Time to keep exploring and see what I can find. So I'm just walking along here and I see something in the distance which is definitely catching my eye. That tree in the distance, hopefully you can see it. But I think this could definitely make for an interesting composition. I don't know which angle I'm going to take the shot from at the moment, but I really like this tree. The shape of it has instantly caught my attention, and in the cold of winter the moss on it really adds something. A lot of trees at this time of year look very bleak, but I'm quite pleased with the shape of this one. It is a huge tree, it's got a lot of moss on it as well, so I think it's just a case of trying to find how I can make this work in a nice composition. So that's me capturing my second and final image for today. Although it probably looks reasonably bright in the video, it is getting quite dark now and there's no point doing any more photography. I've got the camera set up just behind me here. It's got the polarizer on for the same reasons I talked about in my previous image, and I've also got a graduated ND filter, a soft one, just to darken the sky a little bit, which is off in the distance. I really like the image. I've worked hard to get this composition, spent a lot of time here, and I spotted these reeds on the ground just behind me, which I think make for some nice foreground interest. There's also a subtle curve of leaves which lead you out in the general direction of the tree that I really like. And I think the tree looks best from this particular angle. I also quite like the curves of the countryside miles off in the distance. They almost follow the same line as some of the branches which extend from the tree. It's also a nice line in from the left of the image. It sort of keeps your eye heading towards this tree, which is the main focal point. But yeah, I'm very pleased with this image. I took it at 24mm, so wide angle, just to make the foreground quite an important part of the image, take in all the leaves etc and the reeds and the path that I talked about, but just to give some sense of scale and some idea of the surroundings of this tree rather than zoom in and just focus on the tree. I tried to include some of its surroundings as well just to add to the image. But I really hope you've enjoyed hearing how I tackle days like this, how I motivate myself, how I challenge myself to get outside. I really always find this as a worthwhile exercise and I really enjoy this type of photography. I've got two images today which I think I'll be really pleased with, especially considering the weather conditions and the limitations I've set upon myself. So I'm quite pleased with what I've ended up with. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it, I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you soon for my next vlog.